there. I was just about to eat a chordate, but I better not eat this chordate right now because A, I need to teach you guys about animals, and B, there's a pig sitting over my shoulder who probably wouldn't be happy. It's kind of giving me the evil eye right now as I'm doing that. So I'm going to put this away and I'm going to teach you guys today. I'm going to go through two things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a review of all the animals stuff we've talked about up to this point. And the second thing I'm going to do is teach you about the final phyla that we have yet to cover, chordates. So I'm going to flip over to my PowerPoint right now and do a fast review of everything we've talked about with animals, because you're going to be having a test on animals this week. First of all, we talked about the fact that animals are eukaryotic multicellular heterotrophs. Heterotrophs meaning that they obtain their energy from other organisms. Most animals, in fact, every animal we've talked about up to this point, is an invertebrate, meaning they do not have a backbone. They make up the majority of animals. We have covered different types of skeletons that animals have. My first question, there are 10 questions that you are going to have today throughout the video, and you're going to give those to me. My first question is, which of these three types of skeletons do we have as humans? We also talked about different terminology like hermaphrodites, internal and external fertilization, so make sure that you're aware of that. Don't worry about any of these numbers here. Just a review, I said us and tigers have endoskeletons. Platyhelminthes or planarians have hydrostatic skeletons, and insects and a lot of our invertebrates have what are called exoskeletons. This is a review. You don't have to answer those, but just some things to be aware of that we talked about. Question number 2 that you guys are going to have to complete for me, fill in the missing line here. In many animals, they're made up of cells. All animals are made up of at least the cellular level. In many animals, those cells combine to make up something. That something here makes up organs, and then organ systems, and ultimately an organism. Now, some animals are a little bit more simple and they don't have all those levels. But before we get to that, we also talk quite a bit about symmetry. There's 3 types of symmetry: asymmetry, radial symmetry, bilateral. In a review, we said bilateral here. Sponges have asymmetry, and they're a very, very basic animal that are just really made up of the cellular level. They don't have tissue or organs or organ systems. And then here is a sand dollar that has radial symmetry. So some things for you to be aware of that we've already talked about. And then very quickly, the phyla that we went over, porifera, those are your sponges. Again, asymmetry. Cnidaria, you can see pictures of jellyfish and anemones, hydras. Here you can see coral and the Portuguese man of war. Most of these have radial symmetry with the exception of the sea anemone having asymmetry, the coral having asymmetry. These have what are called nematocysts, which are stinging cells. So some things for you to be aware of with the cnidarians. We talked about 3 phyla of worms. There's the platyhelminthes worms that consist of your planarians, flukes, and tapeworms. There's your roundworms. And then the annelids, earthworms, leeches, and polychaetes. One of the other dissections we were going to do this year was in earthworm. Many of you have done earthworms in 7th grade when we did our dissections there. That's question number 3. What would we have dissected? In my last video, I talked about a squid. In this video, number 3, the answer, I'll just give it to you, is the earthworm. That's what we were going to dissect. So that's what I'd like you to send in for number 3. I'm going to skip this slide here, stuff we've already covered. I want to point out again, most of you are getting this. You had to do full taxonomy in a PowerPoint earlier a few different times. Make sure domain you are putting eukarya, and then when you do your scientific names, make sure you either italicize or underline. I do both here, but most of you are getting the hang of that, so keep up the good work there. Again, first 5 phyla we covered: porifera, cnidaria, platyhelminthes, nematode, annelid. You do not have to answer these. You already did that. Here is cnidaria. This can be a review if you want to pause and practice. You can. Here's your platyhelminthes, nematode, and the one some of you are getting wrong, this was a sponge or is a sponge. This would be porifera. So just again some practice for you. The other phyla that we went into are the mollusks. As I said, we were going to do a dissection of a squid. That was a previous question on a previous PowerPoint that I did. And the octopus and squid make up cephalopods. That's the class level. Continuing to go backwards, these are all bivalves. These are classes under the phylum Mollusca. And then our gastropods, you can see here, gastropods are known for their radula. Bivalves have those two shells. Cephalopods are the head foots where they've got tentacles. And I cracked just a wonderful joke for you guys. By the way, my favorite joke that came back was the one where you guys were talking about what do you call a fish with no eyes? A fish with no eyes is called a fish. I thought that was really good. So kudos to those of you that sent that one in. All of these organisms that belong to the class Crustacea have bilateral symmetry. And this is our first class of 5 that you needed to know for the arthropods. Continuing to try to speed through this as a review. Another class of the arthropods are the arachnids. This is a daddy long leg. Here's our mite. In a spider, they have a cephalothorax, that's this part here, and an abdomen. Some of you gave different names for that. So just be aware, cephalothorax and abdomen, they have 8 legs, as we can see here. So that's with our arachnids. Our insects, or our hexapods. Hexapod is the class I'm looking for from now on. Insect isn't a class, hexapod is a class. They have 3 body parts, head, thorax, and abdomen, and 6 legs. I misspoke in my last video. I think I was talking about, I said incomplete dominance instead of incomplete metamorphosis. And complete metamorphosis should be the other part. Our grasshopper here you can see has incomplete metamorphosis, whereas our butterfly goes through what's called complete metamorphosis based on if they completely change their body plan or if it's a change but nothing real significant. Again, that class for that yellow one was hexapod, so don't put insect from now on. Make sure you put hexapod. Cool bonus pictures that some of you sent. I appreciated those. And then the other classes for arthropods are diplopod and chelipod, so be aware of that. Our last phyla that we had talked about before today were the echinoderms. They have a water vascular system, and they are all made up of a certain symmetry. So question number 4, what type of symmetry do you see all of these guys having here? Sea urchin is what's pictured here. Your starfish or your sea star, your brittle star, your sea cucumber is the only one that doesn't really fit this bill, so your answer should not be bilateral for number 4. That should make this a little bit easier. But number 4, what type of symmetry does most all of these organisms in the echinoderm phyla have? All right, so last review page I think is right here. All of the phyla that are invertebrates, that's what your answer for number 11 should have been, are listed here with some examples. So a good place to study off of or look at when you're taking your test, because this breaks things down pretty nice. Now my question number 5 is, what's the only phyla left for us to cover? I've got 8 of them here. You need to know 9. What's the only one not on this list? So let's get to that. Question number 5, the answer should be, well, it is the chordata. And chordata is the only phyla that we're going to talk about that are vertebrates. Now, truth be told, there are a couple of chordates that are not vertebrates, but we're not going to get into that. Your notes mention that. They have a nerve cord, a notochord, pharyngeal pouches, and a postanal tail at some point in their development. So all of these chordates, including us, had these 4 things at some point in our development. And there are 5 classes that you need to know. So I'm going to pull up my highlighter, make sure you know chordata and the 5 classes of chordates that we are about to cover. So the first class is fish, and again, truth be told, this is not actually a class name, but that's all I'm going to have you guys know with this is fish is one of the, or fish are one of the classes for chordates. They are ectotherms, meaning their internal body temperature is controlled by the environment around them, the water around them. They can fertilize either internally or externally. That word for external fertilization that many fish go through is called spawning. And there are three types of fish. There's jawless fish, which you can see here. This is a hagfish, not real common in our area. There are cartilaginous fish, which you can see here. I was on a deep sea fishing trip. This guy looks pretty cool, doesn't he? We were in Florida and I caught this fish. The neat thing about that is this is the same kind of fish that you guys dissected in 7th grade if you were with me. We did a dogfish shark. And this is an example of a cartilaginous fish, sharks, skates, rays, stuff like that. And then bony fish. I'm just going to quick go through this. I wish we could have been together. If we would have done a fish for bonus opportunity where you would have told me the different types of bony fish in this particular slideshow. Carter, there's your sister. And then there's all kinds of different 7th graders, and you guys maybe remember doing this back in 7th grade. Pictures of here's a bass. Here's me with the shark. This is the only non-bony fish within this PowerPoint. This is Jack. Hey Jack, way back when you were young, with a trout. And then we've got some other good pictures here. Catfish with Austin and Devin and Trenton, and some other good ones here with Northern. Mr. Paul with his walleye, and a few other people with their walleye. There's Mason and some of my 7th graders that are listed there. Me with my ginormous perch that I caught ice fishing. Here's some carp. Here's Isaac again. Continues on. Here's a muskie. We've got Jack again. Looks like a big salmon there. I don't know if you guys have ever caught an eel poutfish, but those are kind of fun. But anyway, all of these fish are not jawless, not cartilaginous, but that's my question for number 6, the third category of fish. What were all of these that I just went through? What category of fish do they fall in? And again, it's not jawless, it's not cartilaginous, it's the third one. So that's number 6. We won't obviously be able to do bonus with that, but just some cool pictures that I thought you guys might enjoy. Second class of chordates are the amphibians. Now, fish have to live in water their entire life. Amphibians are ectotherms, meaning that their body temperature is controlled by the world around them. They go through external fertilization, meaning they will lay their eggs. The female will lay her eggs, and then the male will put his sperm over top of these to fertilize those eggs. And then there's major developments that go on here. There's a tadpole that eventually matures into an adult frog, or you can see here the larval form of a salamander. Some people call that the mud puppy, and that will turn into the adult salamander. So that's an example of complete metamorphosis where there's some major changes that take place. The major amphibians for you to know and be aware of are newts going backwards, salamanders, toads, and frogs. Many of you maybe remember dissecting a frog in 7th grade. So those are your amphibians. The third group of chordates are our reptiles. So this is our third class, reptiles. Again, kind of a bummer with not being together is I have a reptile guy, a friend of mine who owns a bunch of reptiles, and some of you may remember this year, he brought a bunch of those reptiles into my 7th grade class. So here's one of my students with that snake that he was brave enough to put around his neck. But reptiles are things like snakes, turtles and tortoises, alligators, crocodiles, lizards. There's a whole list of these. These are also ectotherms. They have a 3-chambered heart. So do our amphibians, if I forgot to mention that. Except for crocodiles. Crocodiles actually have a 4-chambered heart. And they are a very diverse group that are successful really almost everywhere throughout the world. And you can see a handful of reptiles that I put on this slide. Question number 7 is, which of these is the only one that is not a reptile? So I did put one thing on here that's not a reptile. Question 7 is, which of these is not the reptile? By the way, this is a turtle that's common in our area. It's a painted turtle that you maybe have seen before, or maybe some of you even have as a pet. Continuing on here, our next class is, I'm going to call it aves. Aves is the actual name of this class. Aves are our birds. Birds are endotherms, meaning their internal temperature is controlled internally. Much of the energy that they consume, much of the food that they consume is used to maintain a good, healthy internal temperature. They have a four-chambered heart. They have feathers. Many of you know this, but it's the male who's usually the more brightly colored breed of bird. So here's a pheasant right here. This is probably a male based on the fact that it's very colorful. They have lightweight bones. So for those of you that have dogs, you know not to give your dog any chicken bones or turkey bones or anything like that, because they many times will bite right through them and it's a choking hazard. And obviously those lightweight bones are to help those birds to fly. They lay eggs, and they have large cerebellums. They have one large cerebellum, and that's what helps them. We have a cerebellum as well. This is what helps us with our movement. So for them, they have large cerebellums. And you can see some different pictures of these birds listed on here. Question number 8. It should be baseball season, but it's not quite because of COVID. But there are 3 Major League Baseball teams named after birds. Tell me the 3 cities where there's a Major League Baseball team named after a bird. And hint, there's 3 of them right here. So tell me the cities that these birds are represented on the uniforms of those teams. 3 cities. All right, that's question number 8. And those are our aves. Our last group of chordates are our mammals. And our mammals are also endotherms with 4-chambered hearts. They're classified into 3 groups. So I'm going to highlight mammal. This is actually the class name. There are monotremes, the duck-billed platypus. They are the only mammals that lay eggs. There are the marsupials, which have a pouch and raise sort of, you might call them premature young. By the way, question number 9, what is a baby kangaroo called? That's question number 9. You might have to do a little research on that. And then, so there's monotremes and marsupials in that 5th class of mammals. And then, of course, there are placentals, and that's what we are, placental, where the young develop in mom via the help of a placenta. There are 18 different orders of placentas, or placentals, I should say. All 18 of these, my question for you, number 10, is are they ectotherms or are they endotherms? So for question number 10, all 18 orders, are they endotherms or are they ectotherms? That, I think, is going to put a wrap on my video for today. My goal was to keep this under 20 minutes. Again, I wanted to review with you all the animal stuff that we've talked about. There were 8 phyla that we had gone to in a fair amount of detail before today. And then we threw the last one at you, the chordate, as our 9th phyla. So I'm hoping the animal stuff is making good sense to you. And I hope you guys do well on your test. I'm not sure how many more videos I'm going to throw your way, but as always, hope you guys enjoyed, and good luck on your test. We'll see you later.